And we are up. Episode number 23 of the Our Town podcast. Coming to you from Alabama, North Alabama. And I said that on purpose because sometimes I say Madison, sometimes I say Huntsville. I could say the Tennessee Valley. I could say North Alabama. I could say a portion of the TARCOG, the Top of Alabama Regional Council of Governments. And I mention all that because today it is a pleasure to welcome John Kvach to the program.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
So we'll get back to that. But as a history guy, I thought of a lot of ways we could start this episode. But you are a professor of history, world history, American history, public history, Alabama history, Southern
history,
Old South, antebellum.
You name it.
What is your first memory of life? Do you think about that at times, and what was the context around the first memory? Born in Maryland, Howard County.
My first memory may not be my first memory, obviously, but the memory I have that's probably a collective of a number of memories put together is my parents. We would go out hiking together. We'd go out into the woods. We would go out and do things together as a family. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a specific memory as much as it might be just being outdoors, hiking, playing baseball in the backyard, taking walks, biking. The woods behind our house had this huge rock that was next to a stream, and we called that Big Rock. And I used to jump from Big Rock across the stream. And if I looked at it now, it's probably nothing. But back then, it felt like I was jumping like Evel Knievel.
Right.
And I think, my earliest memories are probably really a collective sense of my parents gave me freedom, to kind of like the Duke boys, right? To straighten the curves and flatten the hills. Yep. It was just go out and go explore, do things go do things together with our family, go do things with your friends. But I'd say, in terms of that first memory, it's just probably a very happy, I know we're not supposed to say this anymore, but a very happy childhood, built around being together, being outside, doing things. And it's just a very pleasant way of kind of remembering my past. And I think for me specifically, my love of history, my love of culture, my love of small towns, my love of being outdoors and trails. This is kind of this patchwork quilt that's been created for the last 51 years that, so my mom will hate me for telling you this story, but my mom's not here and she can't yell at me.
Right.
Is when I turned 50.
By the way, I was going to guess you were 51.
51.
Yeah.
I turned 52 in September.
Okay.
And when I turned 50, I didn't have any issues. I got enough hugs as a child. I did all the things that you're supposed to do. I realized I was living in fear of something that I never realized. And I called my parents, and on my birthday, my 50th year, I just said, I think what I was always fearful of, afraid of, was I was going to grow up and be ordinary. And I decided when I turned 50 that, and this sounds like such a pompous thing to say, but I've written books. I'm building a trail across North Alabama. I have 2 wonderful children. I've done all the things you're supposed to do as markers of a productive and happy life.
You got a PhD.
I have a PhD. I think what I realized is my fear of living an ordinary life drove me to be extraordinary in what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And what I like about the word extraordinary, it doesn't take away from you. It doesn't. If I say I'm the best, that means you're not. If I say I'm in first, that means you're in second. And what I'd say is to anyone that wants to argue, and they can't because I'm talking to you, is that the word extraordinary means you've lived an extraordinary life that doesn't take away from someone else. That it's really about how you decide that you want to live your life. And I think my parents gave me a real platform to live an extraordinary life. And I kind of want to pay that forward with my children and just tell them, man, you don't have to follow the rules of someone else. Now, you do have to follow rules, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, if someone says to me, why would they hire a historian to build the Singing River Trail? My answer would be, why not?
Yeah.
Tell me what skill I don't have. I can learn engineering. I can learn base, binder, and surface. I can learn elevation, topography, and drainage, right? But I can't learn the nuanced working with people and reading people and reading body language and communicating and all those things that just happen because you've made a point of being with people and understanding people and listening to people and understanding people. And so for me, I think, almost turning 52, working at a job that doesn't feel like a job, it just feels like I'm living the dream. I'm living my best extraordinary life. Is just really an opportunity to say, like, man, no one's got it better.
Yeah.
And I want to pay it forward, and I want to leave a legacy, not because I want to leave a legacy, but I want to leave a legacy for North Alabama that comes from those 51 years of collective, where it all started. What was my first memory?
Yeah.
Being happy and being outdoors.
So I was going to say, there's a lot that you said there that we're going to visit throughout the duration of this. So here's a comment I'm going to make. You've written books. Mm-hmm. You've written articles.
Yeah.
You've done a theater script.
I did.
World War II.
I did. You're going way back.
You've done a brochure.
I have.
You've done book reviews. You've reviewed manuscripts, and now you've been tapped to blaze a new trail, literally and figuratively. I think I'm going to go out on a limb. You've been interviewed. I don't think you've ever been on a long form podcast for an hour and a half. John Kvach just gets kind of unleashed. Is this true?
You don't want John Kvach unleashed.
But we do.
John Kvach doesn't drink coffee for that very reason.
Is that a true statement?
I've had one cup of coffee my entire life. It was 50 years. I was in New Orleans at the Café de Monde.
Okay.
Never had a cup of coffee. Never even tasted coffee my entire life. So when in Rome, do as the Romans. So I got some beignets and I got a cup of the nastiest drink I've ever had in my entire life. And so I've had one cup of coffee, and that'll be one and done.
I worked at a gas station when I was a senior in high school. Mobil.
Yeah.
Exxon Mobil now, but it was Mobil back then. Gas cost 89 cents a gallon. I had the only credit card I had was to fill up my tank. It was a Mobil credit card. And I worked 5 p.m. to midnight. And I had all the snacks. I ate every snack. I had every drink. And then one day I'm looking at the coffee. I'm like, why do people like this coffee? Like, all right, I'm going to just pour a little bit to see if I like it. I took one sip, never again. Hated it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it didn't have all the caramel, whatever, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with the soda.
Yep.
And everything else we have in this store. And
I'm
that
a tea
was
drinker. So for me, it's tea.
Tea.
I like cream and sugar with my tea.
Yeah. So let's start with, I'm going to go to your resume.
Sure.
I want to do that because you mentioned some things I think that would be a good segue. I've interviewed a lot of people in my life. I've looked at a lot of resumes, and I love to look at a resume and see what somebody's chose to write about themselves. That's where I picked up on a lot of the things you've done. I would say as a historian, you do a lot of writing. You've done a lot of writing,
yes,
right, in your day. So let's jump over to, let's see.
And I will say this. I've done a lot of writing, and I was a terrible writer for the first 40 years of my life. I had a professor, advisor, who is a brilliant scholar, brilliant writer, and a complete challenge as a human being.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I hope he listens to this.
Yeah.
He's from North Alabama.
Okay.
He was at the University of Tennessee, and he was, when I say rough, you couldn't imagine trying to get your PhD. You're trying to write a dissertation in a book, and the comments of like, how did you manage to become more stupid from yesterday? After the fifth grammatical error of a 200-page manuscript, he circles it 100 times and says, "I'm done reading if you can't, handle this." And so it was really kind of like that moment where either you're going to win or you're going to lose. And I decided to win. And it probably had more brown hair before. And at the end of it, you walk away with a real sense of accomplishment and also a real sense of confidence that a PhD is not a measure of intellect. It's a measure of how stubborn you are.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
There's a lot of people ABD, all but dissertation. I'm not one of those people.
Right.
I'm PhD, and for me, that comes with a certain amount of pride. I don't go around calling myself Dr. Kvach. I don't make people call me that. I know that, and for me, there's a certain pride that comes with that. But there's also a certain when I look back and people are like, hey, do you miss teaching? Nope. Hey, do you miss, doing research and writing? Nope. I have my job.
Yeah.
I have my passion. And so when you look at that resume, a lot of it's like a whole nother life for me almost. I don't even recognize my life from there.
Do you ever Google yourself?
Only because I want to post, what I do. Yes, I do, but I want to explain why, so I don't sound too 21st century. Is a lot of times I'll have articles about the Singing River Trail that I want to put on our social media.
Yeah.
And so I'll Google Singing River Trail. I'll Google myself. And sure enough, there's been some article that's been written that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Other than that, I know what I've done.
Sure.
I don't need to.
Well, I say that because on the first page of hits, right? Because no one's going to go to the second page of hits on Google.
Yeah.
But you type in John Kvach. I'm trying to do some research. And,
Yeah.
And here's a resume that's as of, it's dated.
Yeah.
I think it's as of 2016.
Yeah.
So I look at this, and there's your dissertation, and I would love to talk a little bit more about JDB Debo later.
Yes.
Because I saw.
I can do that.
Yeah, and then.
Put me in the Wayback Machine.
Yeah. But, your teaching experience. So, you're from Maryland. You go to West Virginia, which is not, if anybody's not familiar with those areas, that's not uncommon to live in Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and go to school in West Virginia.
No.
Right?
It's a 3-hour drive for me.
Exactly. It's very close-knit in Morgantown, right, where they burn couches after their football team wins.
I've been there. I've
been
done
there?
it. Yes. I didn't burn a couch, but I've been next to a burning couch.
And then, your teaching experience, and then you end up, you finish your PhD in Tennessee, then you come down here, right? So we're getting north in the Mason-Dixon line where you're born, and now we're down into Alabama, which is cool. And I love the variety, right, in your career. Now, one thing I want to ask about, when you were a senior instructor at Howard Community College, that's in Howard County, Maryland.
Yep.
Tell me about the Sports in American Society, that course.
Yeah, and that was a great course. It was a course really built around, and that was probably like 1999, kind of 2000. So things were different back then. With social media, with telephone or with cell phones and things like that. I think that sports has changed a lot in some ways, and I'm a sports fan. I enjoy, both my sons love NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, college football, basketball. Is that what I'd say is in the last 21 and 22 years is I used to enjoy baseball quite a bit and watch it. We were season ticket holders for the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I came back to DC area. I was a season ticket holder for the Washington, then Redskins, now Commanders. So I've enjoyed my time with sports, but what kind of the class was about was how sports has shaped American society and how American society has shaped sports. And a lot of it was back then, like sports was like this really great add-on, like this really great addition to like all these things that were going on. And then there were sports. And now it feels like the tail is wagging the dog. It feels like now we have a university so they can have a football team.
Yeah.
It now feels like we have an NFL team that can hold a city hostage so they can build a new stadium and make an extra $5 billion. And
Right.
so that class was really about how everything, say, from Jackie Robinson and the desegregation of America to, the idea that the Olympics brought people together and divided them, those kinds of things. Today, if I taught that course, I think it'd be a 180-degree difference because I think a lot of it would be kind of the me generation, the Kyries, the kind of the look at me first.
Yep.
The name on the back of the jersey means more than the front of the jersey. And then
how many times can I get traded because I want to win a championship?
Yeah. And
right?
I think too, with colleges, it's like, I went there to get my degree in academics and I enjoyed the sports. And my wife and I actually did we'd go down to like the women's softball and the women's, so the Vols won 2 national championships in women's basketball while we were there. And we had so much fun going to those games. And then you go to the football game and it's a great day. It's tailgating, it's having fun, it's going to the game. But like there's something still pure about the lesser, like when I say lesser, I don't mean the lesser sports, but the less.
It's true passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like those women were playing because they really cared. And not that the football players didn't, but there's not $1 million deals. There's not all these things. And so
I've struggled a lot over time. Like, the Orioles played at Memorial Stadium and then they go to Camden Yards. But since then, I mean, the sponsorships, right, of the stadiums changed, where you
Yep.
you can't even keep track of it. Where it used to be,
Yeah.
if you knew Fenway and you knew Wrigley and,
Right.
you knew Memorial Stadium, and you knew what that meant, what city it was, what
Yeah.
team. And
now it's like the Qualcomm or the
cha-
whatever talent,
yeah.
like whatever company. I don't even know what they do.
there's that, of course, now with the college players getting paid. But the thing, like part of the our town podcast, right? Like I feel like I played high school football in an era where it was your best in your town versus the best in the other town.
Yeah.
There wasn't this all these private schools where kids were trying to jump to because it wasn't national. It was just, hey, this is Herndon.
100%.
This is what we got. And sometimes you might get lucky and somebody moves in that was a good player.
100%.
Our coaches weren't out trying to recruit, and now it's
insane.
It's insane how all of the cheating that goes on. They all do it. They all say they don't do it. Kind of the mailbox,
Yep.
Yep. Or they'll like, hey, just go live with so and so and come to our school, and then now you have all the private schools basically, right? That are and then it sucks away all the talent. I just wish it could be my town versus your town.
Yeah.
And if we lose, hey, what can we do to get better?
Yep.
As a group, right? And grow as a team and grow as a town.
I agree. For me, and listen, everyone has to make their choice, do your thing. I got no beef with that. But I'm a public school, a product of a public school from pre-K to PhD.
Yeah.
So I taught at a community college. I taught at a state university. I taught at another state university. So I have done nothing but teach public education. And what I'd say is that, again, this is not me making judgments, but like when people ask me about a private education, man, it's like your choice, right? I don't care. If you got a full set of adult teeth, you're an adult, make your own decisions.
Right.
But, when you look at something like education and like say high school, to your point, is the same thing. When growing up, it was like, like the best of each town kind of, that's what bound them. That's the binder that like, hey man, our team's going to the States and like the whole town is like on board. And now you probably have 7 schools and, 3 virtual schools and 2 schools I've never even heard of yet, format. And, it's just kind of that further division of, which is fine. I got no beef with that. But there's a sense of that I think we've lost.
Yeah.
And that's something, especially on the Singing River Trail. I say this a lot. I talk a lot to politicians. I talk a lot to elected officials. I talk a lot to private stakeholders, private citizens. And, and this is political. If you want to build a wall, go build a wall. I'm building bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And, so for me, if you want to exclude, if you want to divide, man, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. It's up to you. Do your thing. But I'll tell you this is I'm going to spend every minute undoing the divisions that have been done.
Sure.
And what I'd say to you is I'm a historian and I'm still a historian. When people say it's never been as bad as this, I remind them that the Civil War cost a lot of people their lives. So in fact, it has been worse than this.
Right.
But at the same time, what I'd say is what can we do to help bring people together and maybe see that what you just talked about, the best of Madison, the best of Huntsville, the best of Athens, the best of Leeton, the best of Florence, the best of Jackson County, and take pride in that and not have to diminish the other to do it.
Yeah, and there's going to be people like you and I who move from other places that we want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Right, and strengthening that community bond here.
Yep.
I want to go quickly back to your resume and ask you a couple questions.
Sure. Oh gosh.
This is down in the section of conference papers and presentations.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff you've done, which is cool. But there's a gap from about 1995 to 2009. Now I know you were a park ranger along the C&O Canal, and that's cool. But is that principally why you weren't writing or producing, or was it just job related? And talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, that was really me finishing up my first master's. So I have 2 master's degrees. So that was me finishing up my first master's degree. I think slightly burned out. I don't think I realized I had such a big gap. Like, I can't explain it because I don't think I knew this. Yeah. But a lot of this was, I think I was focused on a different part of my life then. Just looking at those dates, part of it might be that transition to the National Park Service, working for Howard Community College, where I was in life. Just, I lived in DC. I lived in the DC area. And I was single, happy, and was getting paid too much money.
Yeah.
And back then, I could fly from DC to Vienna for $248 round trip. And I can tell you this, I did that a whole lot.
Vienna, Austria?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so,
It's not Vienna, Virginia.
No, I didn't go to that side of town. That's
248.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't go to
No, I, as a Marylander, I can't do Virginia.
Yeah.
For me is like, so I'd fly over to Vienna. I would then go straight to the main railroad station, and I would take the first train to another country that had an overnight compartment.
Really?
And so the first time I did that, I went to Hungary. The second time I did that, I went to Romania. And Romania ended up being a place that truly blew me away because it was just, I don't do itineraries.
Yeah.
I just travel.
Yeah.
And I got off on this platform, and I'm talking, it was like a Hollywood film. Like the train left, and there's this wooden platform, and I'm standing on it, and there is nothing I can see in any direction. And I'm like, I may have just bitten off more than I can chew. And this woman comes driving along, speaks no English. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. And she said, hop in.
Right.
With her hand, just kind of like waving me on. And we go to this place called Cluj-Napoca, which is in the Transylvania mountains. And 4 visits later, I love Romania, and I would have never figured it out by just reading about it. I would never figured it out by just looking at a globe. It was just, I think that's kind of maybe the way I've lived my life.
So you were a park ranger at the time, and this is just on your vacation.
So I was a park ranger, and I also worked for the Howard Community College.
Okay.
So I had both. I was the assistant director of admissions and advising.
So you were also going over there to do some things related to world history or
no. It was more, think of it as more as a cultural anthropological single guy
Gotcha.
working his way through Eastern Europe, probably having too much fun.
Because I heard you had made comment, you were like a GS5, but you were getting a housing allowance, best job, best time of your life. Working off the C&O Canal, which
living
comes
in
from
Georgetown, making $17,000 a year.
Give us a little hit. I know George Washington, I think it was the Potomac something company.
Yes, the Potomac Canal Company.
And they were trying to connect the Ohio River to like the Chesapeake Bay.
So Potomac River, basically Potomac River, Chesapeake Bay, and eventually get to the Ohio River.
Okay.
And so, George Washington on the Virginia side was trying to make a canal there. And then in the 19th century, Maryland decided that they were going to build the C&O Canal that basically follows from Cumberland, Maryland down to Georgetown. Yeah. So the Park Service put me in a house in probably the swankiest zip code in the area for free. I had to pay long distance on my phone. I made $17,500 a year, and I couldn't have been happier.
Were you living on the Virginia side?
No.
In Georgetown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was. I was living right down like where all the restaurants were.
Got it.
So I was living large.
Listen, I'm not offended at all that you're poking at Virginia. I'm from Virginia, but I get it, right?
Well, my parents live in Virginia. They live in Lexington.
I know.
So I have to, they'll be listening to this.
That's near VMI, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's transition and let's talk present day, and then we'll work our way back again.
Sure.
So launch 2035. Mm-hmm. And just to give viewers, my fans, if you will, I hope subscribers a glimpse. I'm going to talk to Rob Hamilton eventually here on the program, probably the next month. He's the current president of Launch 2035. Mm-hmm. I'm also going to talk to Sarah James coming up. She's from Tarcog. Yep. There's 12 councils of government in Alabama. We're the 12th, meaning Madison, Huntsville, DeKalb, and a couple more, right?
Yeah,
Jackson and Morgan.
They have 5 counties.
And then I'm also going to talk to John Allen from the Committee of 100, and here's John Kvach. So it's all going to somewhat tie together. Selfishly, didn't grow up in Alabama. Yeah. I grew up in Virginia. We got the land and people of Virginia in 4th grade, all about colonial Williamsburg. And
I love it.
And, the 10th state, and that's great. But now I feel like this is helping me to understand a little bit more about Alabama history. Just researching you coming on today is great for me, and stuff that went on in the state and just the way we're structured politically. And so it's going to be cool to have a little bit of a tie-in from episode to episode going forward here on the Our Town podcast. So 2015, 2014, there's an idea hatched. but it started a lot smaller than I think when you came on. It was only going to be 70 miles of trail.
Yes.
Now here's what I want to do also. That's not it.
Actually, it started off even smaller than that. The original.
There it is.
The original alliteration of.
And real quick, just for the people that are listening, right now I'm actually showing a map of the Singing River Trail, and John's going to talk about it, and we're basically he's going to tie in what was the first phase, the first idea, and evolving into what the concept is now.
Yeah. So for your listeners who aren't watching, think of a map that starts in Jackson County from Bridgeport, which is just on the Tennessee-Alabama line near Chattanooga. And we're going to work our way west towards the Shoals and Florence, Sheffield, Tuscumbia, and Muscle Shoals. So kind of paint that picture for them. So originally, the idea started off very small with a guy named Joe Campbell, who is part of the Huntsville hospital system, their legal counsel. And Joe had an idea about, he was on the board of the Calhoun Community College board, and made a suggestion about what if we connected the campuses between Decatur and Huntsville. What a neat connection that would be. So the original idea was even less than the 70 miles. And so they put together a small group task force and just said, hey, would this be possible? Yes, it would be. Great for connectivity, great for a lot of different things. Eventually then raised with 33 separate partners, raised $200,000 to master plan out a trail system that would connect Huntsville, Madison, kind of basically Huntsville, Madison, Decatur, and Athens, kind of that golden triangle. If Tom Butler was here, is that the idea of connecting these towns. So that was the job that I was handed in August of 2020. And that 70 miles, 3 counties would have been Madison, Limestone, and Morgan. And about 3 months into my job, getting phone calls from people all across North Alabama saying, would it be possible for us to be on the Singing River Trail? You're handed a brand new job. You're trying to do what's right. You're trying to do the task that was given to you. And one day, after getting about the 50th phone call about why aren't we on the Singing River Trail master plan, I kind of decided, you know what? There are no trail hit squads. There are no trail police. Like, I'm the only person who loses a paycheck if this thing goes sideways. So I decided, what if we just went from Bridgeport all the way to the top northeast side of Alabama, all the way to the northwest side? And what would that mean? So I expanded the map, and we're looking at it now on the monitor. But for your listeners that don't look at this, you can go to our website, which you'll find on here. But what I'd say to you is we now have, think of a human highway for pedestrians and bikers, 10, 12, 14 feet wide, depending where we are, paved in urban areas, natural surface in rural areas. And think about a contiguous trail that goes from Bridgeport to the Shoals. And think about being able to hop on it anywhere and do a short ride, short run, a walk, or someone who's feeling extra froggy. Start on the one side, and 220 miles later, you've seen North Alabama. And so really, if you believe in the free market, my idea, if it was good, would have been funded. And if it was bad, I'd be going back to teaching probably.
Yeah.
So expanded it, which means we'd have 2 more new master plans for the eastern section from Jackson County, Marshall County to Huntsville. And then the western section, which would be basically Decatur to the Shoals, which would be Morgan County, Lawrence County, Colbert County, and Lauderdale County. Is what made me happy is that we funded both sides of this relatively quickly. Google was our first big sponsor. And like I like to tell people, not Google Fiber, but Big G Google. Go big.
Yeah.
And so Big G Google is the first one that gave us money. And their reasoning behind giving us money is that they have a service center in Bridgeport, Alabama, and they want quality of life. They want workforce development. They want to keep their workers there. And this is their investment in that. And so I knew I was on the right track. And then I spent the next 6 months working on our state legislators, helping them to understand that this isn't just health and wellness. It's not just recreation, but it's economic development. It's community development. It's civic pride. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's connectivity. It's understanding of other people. It's tourism. And so really...
Is that a tough sell?
No. Like, I'm not saying this because I can't prove it to you, but what I tell you is in 2 years, I have less than 5 no's. As a nonprofit asking for money, we have 4 no's. That would be... I mean, we've gotten no's. Don't worry about that. We're good at getting no's. But I mean significant, like, hey, you'd be a natural partner. No, I don't think so.
How much of that is attributed to your skill set? Versus, not to demean anybody else, but if somebody else was in your position, would there be more no's? Where it's, hey, this is a guy who's uniquely qualified. You have your talent. You're extraordinary.
Yep.
You're the man for the job.
I would say so. And I would say that because of this. Is... When John Allen, Rick Tucker, and Joe Campbell hired me 2 years ago, they told me they wanted to have someone who woke up every morning and thought and worked towards having a Singing River Trail.
Right.
And what I told them after a year was, you actually hired someone who wakes up in the morning and goes to bed thinking about the Singing River Trail. And what I'd say is I don't have an extraordinary or an extraordinary power, but I do have persistence.
Yeah.
I can communicate. I have a positive message that I'm able to deliver because of the people before me that did all the hard work with the first master plan. That's everyone from Marie Bostic, who's the head of the land trust, to Matt Hayes, who was the project manager, to a lot of people that just did some ounce or some pound or some weight of work along the way. And what I'd say is I felt particularly at ease when I got the job. I left tenure. I mean, I had a job until the day I decided I didn't want a job.
Right.
And I left tenure. I left my position as an associate professor to learn how to fundraise, to learn how to lobby, to learn how to work with people in a way that I'd never had done before. And it wasn't like I have some secret power. The secret power is keeping it positive, connected, and truly the focus for me is if we all don't work together, this doesn't work. And so Town Creek, Leeton, and Cortland, Alabama. So Cortland, Alabama is a town of 640. Town Creek is over 1,000, and Leeton 690. When I went there for the first time, these are 3 towns that don't have the money. They don't have the bandwidth to pay someone to come say, hey, I need support at the Singing River Trail. What I'd say is I walked into the mayor's office of all 3 of those towns with a message that was positive. We can connect you to other places. I don't make false promises like this is going to take a minute. But if you're on board, if you're with me, if we're working together, we can make this happen. And what I tell you is my point of pride is this, is I went to Cortland, Alabama, and Mayor Linda Peebles, and I had our first meeting. And this is a town that does not have a whole lot, 640 people. You know, if you told me before the meeting, what would they give to help support? Because remember, my salary and all of our expenses comes from me raising money. I thought a town of 640 people that's seen its better days in a while. If I got $500 to $1,000, I would have been ecstatic. When Linda called me and said, we just voted you $10,000, is one of those moments where, okay, I think I got this. And then Town Creek and then Leeton, well, we want to do $10,000 too. Yeah. And I want you to understand something. These are towns that don't have $10,000, but they understand that if you have a vision and you have a positive, progressive point of view that moves forward, man, listen, I'm a historian, right? I know how the things have been in the past. We can be better than our past. Yeah. Don't forget our past, but we're not beholden to it. I'm not bound to anything that's, when I go into a town, I'm able to go in as, I feel like Switzerland. Like, if District 3 doesn't get along with District 4, I don't care. Right. Not my problem. But if you want to connect to Decatur and to the Shoals, and if you want to begin the process of moving forward and not living the past mistakes and who cares, let's move forward, not living excuses, not living the things that have bound us and held us back. And what I tell you is this, and I don't want to say a whole bunch of names because I'm going to leave someone out and then they're going to call me. Yeah.
What about me?
Yeah, but I tell you this.
You just say, hey, I'm going to be on the episode.
Yes, we can do a whole rundown.
Well, yeah.
But it's one of those things where, and you're going to hear this from Sarah James. She's one of, and this is something for me that's very important. I've become friends with everyone I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor of Leeton, Derek Silcox, they have a little distillery there. And he and I just hosted Sledge Fest, which was a music festival dedicated to Percy Sledge, who's from Leeton, and that's where the Muscle Shoals sound came from, is Leeton. And so when a couple thousand people show up to a town of 690 and blow everything up, and Derek's looking at me going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
And he has this bottle of banana moonshine. What I love is it's not just working. It's not just a transaction. It's now friends.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah's my friend. Linda's my friend. Mike Parker, who's the mayor of Town Creek, is my friend. Derek is my friend. And when you begin to work with your friends and you become friends, I'm sure there's someone out there some HR manager who's probably cringing right now. Who cares? Yeah, you don't work for me. Is that ultimately what I'd say is that when we create 1 + 1 and make it equal 3, when we can make win-win and then add another win. So the win is when Cortland, Alabama gives me $10,000, it's a win for the Singing River Trail. We immediately turned around and we doubled the money that they invested in less than 2 months. So now Cortland has a win. And then when the people of Cortland have the Singing River Trail come through it, now they've won. And when North Alabama can have more tourists come and more people visit, then they win. And so it's like that ripple effect is
Sure.
that initial win isn't my win. It's really the win that hopefully someday when I'm old and sitting on the front porch with you doing another interview, it's like, hey, remember that time you talked about, and that ripple has now wound its way across North Alabama.
Let me ask you this. Tie together a few things here. You were just talking about friends with these folks, right? Whether or not you ever thought you'd be friends with them, that's starting to formulate.
Right.
In a broad stretch of friends, right? Across the entire top Alabama, if you will. When you were interviewing for the job, and this is something I've thought about, coming from Virginia, and I worked in the Intel community. Now I'm not in the Intel community. How not only am I from Virginia, now I'm here in Alabama, but how am I going to be received by the defense sector, the military sector, or FBI where I didn't work? Am I going to be accepted as someone who still is, sharp or capable and all that? What was the reaction towards somebody like you, not from Alabama? Yeah, you went to school at Tennessee.
Right.
Yes, you had taught here. Was that enough to overcome any sort of negative feelings towards you?
Yeah.
In the interview and how many applicants were really considered?
One.
Just you? You were handpicked.
I like to think that we went 1 for 1 for a reason.
Yeah.
And it was because they sold a vision that I could buy and then resell, and then I think I sold a vision back to them that said, if we do this correctly, it can be done. And so, my goal, I'll be honest with you, I was the first interview, and you could ask my wife this. My interview was, and I'll be the last one. Like, let's make it really easy.
Yeah.
If I don't nail this, we'll have 10 interviews and hopefully I get the job. If I nail this, I'll be getting a phone call later this afternoon.
So were you the first executive director in that? Were they trying to do this just from a committee standpoint for the first several years when it
volunteers?
Was just volunteers.
Yeah.
Then they finally realized we got to do this different. We need someone to own this.
And this is not a slight on volunteers because volunteers work.
Right.
But what I'd say is that a volunteer group can only take you so far.
Right.
So the Singing River Trail has someone, I'll give you an example. So from my house in Huntsville to the Shoals is an hour and 25 minutes. In the last 14 working days, I've been out there 8 times. I spent time where I'll go out to Florence and spend all day in Florence. And then one night I had to go over to Jackson County and speak at a leadership graduation at 7 p.m. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you that's another 40 minutes past where I live. And so people are like, I can't believe you do this. And I'm like, it's that if it's a job, then it feels like a job.
Sure.
All right. So I have books on tape. I'm well read. I'm very well read. I listen to a lot of books on tape, a lot of podcasts. I try to make all my phone calls,
Right.
and most people know this. You're going to get a phone call from me. It's going to be, I'm on the road.
Yeah.
I don't have an office. That's changing soon. I can't say much about that, but we got a very generous donation of a home building that will be announced soon.
Nice.
And when will this be aired?
Next week.
Okay, I can't say anything yet.
Okay.
But you'll be reading about it.
Okay.
Probably across the state.
By the way, shout out to Mecca. I don't know how do you pronounce
Mecca
her last
Music.
Music. This will air, and she's going to do a story on me. They're on in the 256 today.
Okay.
And it should time well for next Thursday when I release your episode.
Perfect.
And then she'll release an article, which is I'm excited about.
And she's a friend that we work with too.
You had mentioned you mentioned a little earlier, and something I read too, where you were kind of burned out as a professor. You wanted to continue doing extraordinary things in your life. How much of it's also just kind of that I've been through that kind of midlife crisis where some of it's just where are you at as a father and raising kids, and where are you at in your career? And I have 20 or 30 years left. What am I going to do? Am I happy? Am I doing the right thing? And I think sometimes people I'm kind of look, my working hours are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yep.
Honestly, you can call me anytime and I'm fine with that because I like to work. I'm trying to be productive. I'm trying to do different things. And I think some people have a hard time understanding that. This is where you're at. You're 51 years old. You're almost 52.
Yep.
And you're living a dream. You're being able to harvest in a way a lot of just and utilize and leverage stuff that you've done in the past to something totally new and different.
Yep.
There's a challenge. Not everybody always gets to do a challenge in life.
Nope.
Accurate.
Yep. 100%. And I think the thing that
did you buy yourself a Corvette? Did you go through a midlife crisis?
I drive a Honda Accord.
Okay. Corvette. Your wife drives that?
No. No.
I don't even like Corvettes.
No, nor me. I'll tell you this is the me at 21, 31, 41, and 51 is so for me at 51, the satisfaction of helping other people.
Yeah.
Is so when I was 31, I want to win.
Yeah.
And I know this, my mom is probably going to hate this. I like to win. So if we're going to play a game,
sure,
I want to win. And ask my family, this is why I don't play board games.
Yeah.
I'm a bad loser, but I'm a terrible winner.
Yeah.
And so, I don't play games. I don't like games. And so for me, when I was 31, it was really about winning.
Mm-hmm.
And, at 51, it's about us winning. And I think the thing and I don't know when that transitioned for me, is the satisfaction of seeing good things happen to good people is so much more satisfying than a personal win. When I was at UAH, I won the teaching award. I won the research award. I won the Daughters of the American Revolution National Award for the entire nation.
My wife's a member of DAR.
Well,
she's in the studio.
Better bow down and take note. I won their national award.
Wow.
So I have a ribbon at UAH, when you have graduation, you can't wear any ribbons or medals unless it's a national or international award. And I was the only person, I think, in my department that could wear that.
Did you go to Constitution Hall to receive that?
Yeah.
Wow.
So for me, I did everything well. I did everything because I wanted to move forward. I wrote books because I wanted tenure. I got medals because I wanted to be the best me, and I also wanted to win. And then somewhere I mellowed out. Some people who are listening to this that know me may argue, but it's really been the satisfaction of this job is, today I was in Huntsville, and then I was in Athens, and then I came over here to Madison. On Friday, I'm going to Jackson County. Next week, I'm out in the Shoals area, at Decatur. I'm on the road every day, and couldn't be happier.
Yeah. Let me. So, public history. I want to talk about public history. I've looked at definitions.
Yep.
I've never really heard that term. That's a fairly newer thing. And I feel like I'm a pretty smart person, and sometimes look at the definitions, and I still don't quite get it. However, you said I was listening to a presentation or an interview that you did, and you made a comment where history is a point in time. It's not just a point in time; it's a series of things over time, right? And or
change over time.
A change over time. And here you're kind of talking about yourself, right? You should never
change every time.
It's hard for me with what they do to people, kind of cancel culture, or people that made a decision, 50 years ago, and now it's like you might as well just,
right.
They may as well, I don't even know, but be the devil.
Yeah.
Because they said one thing.
Right.
You just said it. If you're 21, you're a certain way. 31. History in John Kvach and the life he's led, you have to kind of understand the full body of work.
Yes.
Can you talk about public history, kind of define it maybe in layman's terms?
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
So in the old days, think of history as this. I got a degree and you don't. I'm either teaching or I work at a museum, and you're coming to me, right? So I'm the expert in the field. You're coming to the museum to learn history, or you're coming to my class to learn, and be taught.
Mm-hmm.
Public history is kind of flipping it on its ear and saying, instead of you coming to me, what if I start coming out to you and finding people and saying, hey, to a community of people who've never felt engaged in the bigger narrative, your story matters just as much. Hey, we want to do something out in the field. So it could be museum studies, it could be oral history, it could be archives, it could be, historic preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it more as on the ground, boots on the ground, kind of more real, tangible. How do you use history in the community? How do you make money off of history? How do you create here's what I'd say to you. Think like Williamsburg, since that's where you kind of were a part of your life, is like living history. Like instead of here's a book and read about it, hey, what if I showed you what it looked like? What did it taste like? What did it smell like? And I think people forget that history does have a taste and a smell, right? So when people say the good old days, I remind them in the good old days, was that before there was penicillin? So if I got pricked by a piece of barbed wire and died, a week later, is that the good old days?
Right.
Or was it the days of slavery? Was that the good old days? Or was it a day where women couldn't vote? Was that the good old days? Like, be careful how far back you dream, because those are the big things. Now, remember when you only took a shower a week or a bath a week, were those the good old days? When you had a can of food that you may or may not die from, were those the good old days? So, when I tell people I'm happy with my cell phone, I'm happy with my Honda Accord, I'm happy with mass production, but at the same time, and this is something that's key to the Singing River Trail, is every one of our locations has an authentic culture that's unique to itself. So if you go to Bridgeport, Stevenson, Scottsboro, or Paint Rock in Jackson County, you're on the tail end of the Appalachian Mountains. You're on the tail end of a culture that's bound by these mountains that includes music and food in cultural ways. And then you go all the way across the trail to the Shoals. You're now on the cusp of the Mississippi Delta, and you're now in a whole nother place that has nothing to do with the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
And that's all within 220 miles of our trail.
Yeah.
So imagine kind of like public history would be, instead of saying, hey, we want to have trail towns and all the trail towns will look and sound and taste exactly like the other trail towns, man, who wants to go to that? Right? But if I told you, man, we can go to Payne's, and by the way, you need to go to Payne's. Payne's is a restaurant that's been, I think, since 1869. It's been open in downtown Scottsboro.
Okay.
And, if you're looking for a milkshake, you need to go to Payne's.
Go to Payne's.
Okay. And so
Wendy, write that down, please.
Go to Payne's, and you might even see Judge John Graham. He's a local celebrity, raconteur, maybe even.
Wow.
So you might even get a sighting of him. But you go there and you have yourself a meal, and it feels like you're an A. And then you go over to the Shoals and you have a cocktail at Odette, and it feels very sophisticated, and it feels very cosmopolitan, and you're in the same place, but you're not in the same place.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about these connections.
Yeah.
In fact, last week, there's a soul food restaurant in Leeton called F&D's, and anyone listening to this needs to go to F&D's on my behest. There's a woman there that runs a restaurant, and she's happy.
Yeah.
And she's trying to make me fat. Is that it's just good food run by a good person in a great town. And we found her because she's going to be part of the trail. And what I love is that she took our stickers and started putting them on her cash register, her menu. So now I feel like we've branded this soul food restaurant in Leeton, Alabama. There's stickers everywhere. And I'm thinking, like, product placement. Man, I don't think about that. Like, our product was placed because we mean something to her.
By the way, I people notice, like the screen that's up right now, I'm cycling through a ton of pictures I just took from website, Facebook, or whatever, and some of them are from that Sledge Fest.
Yes. Fantastic, by the way.
Are you documenting these types of things that ultimately could be a show or, History Channel type stuff?
No, but you're the second person today who has actually made that suggestion.
This reminds me of there was a show where you just throw a dart at the map and you just go there.
Yeah.
Could be in Idaho somewhere, and you show up and you just get to know the people, and they film it, and
we could do that. Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's funny is Walker County Community Foundation, which is where Jasper, Alabama is. They came up for a ride along a couple Fridays ago, and then Huntsville, a person from the city of Huntsville came and did a ride along. And I've had people say to me, like, every Friday, why don't you make it open where people could do a ride along in a shadow of where you're going to go? And I warned them, like, so, this is the reason I don't drink coffee, just so we're clear.
Right.
And so at the end, I think both groups were like, oh, good Lord. Like, and so there's a certain energy level.
Yeah.
I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
So I do thrive off of other people's energy. And so when I get home, I think most people think I must collapse into a ball of whatever. No, and that's the other thing too, is people are like, oh my gosh, when do you sleep? I'm like, all night. I go to bed at 10, I wake up at 5. I'll usually turn on an old movie. I love old movies. Turn TCM on. I'll pour a glass of bourbon and I will sit there and I just got YouTube TV. So then after the movie, I'll probably turn on like some old 80s music video that I haven't seen in forever.
Yeah.
And I go to bed. And so so what I tell people is like, man, I truly am living my best life, including my sin. So
the Singing River Trail, there's a river in Mississippi that claims to be the origin of the Singing River, but then also the Tennessee River is known for that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the origin of the name, how that kind of stuck to the trail? Is it the Tennessee River? Is
that's just the translation.
The Pascagoula or whatever, Mississippi?
Yep. Yeah, they get all wound up. It's like, good Lord, people. All right, we can have two. How about that? Like, settle down. It's Mississippi. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
So they don't get this podcast, right? So
it's the internet. They probably
no.
It depends.
They probably don't get it. So
I do know they get in Corinth, Mississippi. Though.
Well, then I love Corinth. By the way, the slug burgers in Corinth, fantastic. For the name. It comes from the Native American interpretation of Tennessee, the Singing River.
Okay.
And for us, it really comes down to this tale that was told about a young girl that was removed during the Trail of Tears, moved from here where the river sang. She was moved out to Oklahoma, and then realized for her that the rivers out there didn't sing, and spent the next couple of years working her way back here.
Okay.
And so that oral tradition has lived on. And so when they started looking at what could we call this trail system, I wasn't a part of that, so I can't really tell you that story. But the logo is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love our logo. If your viewers who are watching can see it, it's the bright yellow. So it's really the interpretation of what the land, the water, and the air looks like. Native American interpretation is, so it's a very vibrant logo. Everyone loves it, myself included. And I think for us, it's really trying to have that Native American heritage, which was a key component of starting this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken a little bit of a backseat right now because for a lot of what we need to get the trail down is we need economic development, we need health and wellness, we need workforce development. The minute we start getting trail down on the ground, and that's coming very soon, is then we can begin to interpret it and begin to add that layer of Native American history that we want to really focus on.
So development-wise, right? So help me understand. So I live in Madison. One thing that as a resident, you come into a town, and right across the street, we're by the Bradford Creek Greenway.
Yep.
And in fact, my wife bought a house in November by herself. I was in Virginia. She comes down. In December, I came down for FBI Day, and I made sure to bring my running clothes, and I went for a run. I couldn't wait to go to the neighborhood of my new home and fell in love with the greenway system, and so thankful for those that did city planning Then I found out there's the Indian Creek Greenway. And then I found out all these things, right, related to trails. So there's that for me, right? What's kind of important to me. You mentioned the smaller towns that are going to benefit from connecting maybe a town to another town, right? So ease of access to maybe if they're going to go on a bicycle or walking, it helps them from a commerce perspective or job perspective.
Well, and also like business development. Businesses want to be along that. Apartment buildings want to be near it. All the things you're saying.
To receive the money from those coming. So like, is there anything I'm missing when it comes to what people want to hear or something that's maybe specific or unique to a town that this is going to bring them as far as a benefit?
60% of my job is probably economic development in small town, rural Alabama. And, for me, going to a place like Scottsboro, or I keep using the same examples, but, some of our smaller towns, Mooresville, Leeton, Town Creek.
How cool is Mooresville, by the way?
Well,
man, that's a cool place.
So when you hear my announcement about where we'll be settling, you might be even more impressed.
Okay.
And so economic development's a big part of this, is that the idea of building trail towns. And, if you look up Damascus, Virginia, it's probably the quintessential trail town, a town that was literally a place where dreams went to die.
Yeah.
Like the American dream went to go kill itself, is now probably the perfect example of what a trail can do. Multiple bike shops, multiple coffee shops, multiple bars, multiple places, Airbnbs, because they're on this trail that people want to use, and they want to stay the night, and they want to eat and drink and have fun. They want an ice cream shop. They want a movie theater. And so you took this place where the American dream is about snuffed out, and now it's this thriving town in Southwest Virginia.
Yeah.
For towns that we're working with, a lot of it's is really economic development and being able to support people coming in and eating and drinking and having fun, recreating. I need a bike shop. I need this. I need that. These are all the things we're trying to to really help our towns with. And it may sound like, well, that's not what you were hired for. Yeah, it was. You just chose maybe a different route of looking at it. And so, the pitch is, there is no pitch. I don't really have a pitch, as much as I have points I want to make to people. And one would be, if you put a greenway system down, it's health and wellness. Okay, before I go any further, I want you to think about this. It's not just physical health and wellness. It's not just you putting your shoes on and going out for a run.
Right.
Because what you did that day wasn't just physical, because what you also did that day was emotional, it was spiritual, and it was mental. Like, you went to where you wanted to be. You disappeared. You weren't thinking FBI. You weren't thinking about new house. You weren't thinking about your wife going rogue and buying houses without you. Like, that you ultimately, you disappeared for a second.
Yeah.
And so that emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual health and wellness component is really important. So you take that and then you add it to the idea of tourism, the idea of quality of life, the idea of workforce development, the idea of economic development, the idea of even ecological, you're giving opportunities for animals to be able to travel across places where it may be hard to travel. Then you add the whole interpretive side, Native American history, music history, food history, culture, African American history, Civil War history, Southern history. You want to split it with transportation history. And so you start adding those things, and now you realize you have another overlay. So a lot of it just is you begin to layer, and you begin somewhere. And so in Leeton, Alabama, for us, it was when the mayor decided, we did a photo simulation of downtown Leeton, and we showed what Leeton could look like with the Singing River Trail through it, and we added a set of string lights going back and forth across this whistle-stop downtown. The mayor looks at that and goes, this is it. Went to Lowe's and bought $338 worth of string lights, strung them up in one day with volunteers, didn't have to wait for someone, didn't have to get regulations, didn't have to do any, went out and did it. And those lights have changed how Leeton looks at itself.
Talk about public versus private land. I'm assuming you're having to meet with some private landowners.
Yes.
Where you need the trail to come through.
Yes.
What's that like?
So it's interesting, is a lot of yeses, a lot of people who are very interested. So one thing is realize that for some people that the dynamic is legacy. Some are like, man, I'd love to have this trail. Like you were saying, I'd like to go for a run and have like the trail start literally at my house. There's also a pretty economic, there's a little bit of economics to this, is that typically when you're looking at your value of your property with a trail on it, it goes up 5 to 7,
Really?
maybe even higher than that. So you're looking at, let's say you're a farmer in Limestone County and your farm is 5 generations and you're trying to figure out what you want to do. And suddenly you get the idea of like, I can develop part of this and keep part of it. Is having a trail go through it suddenly adds value to all the homes that were associated and tied to it. We see this in South Huntsville where John Hayes and the Hayes family built out the Hayes farm and put the Singing River Trail at the center of it.
Okay.
Because these are the amenities people want.
Yeah.
They don't want tennis courts anymore.
Right.
They want pickleball courts, but they want, what they really want is, I want connectivity.
Yeah.
I want to be able to hop on and ride somewhere. I want to go get something to eat. I want to get something to drink. I want to go to the library. I want to go to the Trash Pandas. I want to go and disappear into the woods.
You want to hear a funny thing? So, this is by no means I'm crying about the traffic in Huntsville, right? Because
I know. Yes.
However, sometimes you're in a little bit of a hurry, and it's a little bit of a production getting my son into James Clemens High School. So I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, how do I selfishly not have to sit? And it takes like a half hour to go 2 miles, right? And crawl into the school. I have a friend who's walking with his son, and they beat us.
Yeah.
Walking in and walking out. But I looked at
on that greenway system.
There's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, thank goodness for the trail from that cul-de-sac that spills into the property. Son, I'm going to start dropping you there, and you can walk in.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that they thought about, putting that trail in there, and I'm sure that the people at the cul-de-sac love that.
Oh gosh, yes.
30-foot section, but that gets them to the school. They don't have to mess with all the traffic.
Madison is one of our great partners. Mayor Finley's been great.
Yeah.
Mary Beth, who's your city planner, is a visionary and what she wants. And what I tell you is this, is working with the city of Madison, you're going to have more toys coming.
Okay. Can't wait.
Good toys. I think we're going to be able to get you down to the Tennessee River. Let's put it that way.
Really?
Yep.
I'm excited. Every time I take off, and I just came back from Virginia on a trip, like I just love watching how the Tennessee River snakes through the valley, and I love Huntsville.
So I'll just tell you this, and this is in our lifetime. This is in our like immediate lifetime. I'll bet you a bottle of water here that
it's an expensive bottle of water.
Yes, I was gonna say only the best here. The Crystal Geyser is that I think you'll probably see a connectivity that will shock you on how easy and how fast it could happen.
Wow.
So here's the thing, is if the state of Alabama gave me $20 million, I could put 200 Alabamians to work. I could have all these things happening. You begin to make money off of it immediately. I'll give you an example. Bentonville, Arkansas, spent $36 million on a greenway system, mountain biking system. They're now making about $19 million a year off of that system.
Really?
As a community. So do the math. I'm not good at math, but that means in 2 years you've recouped the cost. So this is what I'm trying to work toward, is if you gave us a pot of money to begin to build these trails, it's not just quality of life, but it's also work. It's also putting people to work and having opportunities. But imagine if you lived where you do right here and, in the undisclosed location here in the bunker, is that if you could ride down to the Tennessee River right now, would you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I would.
Yeah. And would you feel better?
Yeah, I would.
And would you feel healthier?
Yeah.
And would this value of this house mean more? Yes.
Absolutely.
See, and that's the thing. And now imagine if I told you that you and your wife could take a bike ride down and get dinner and not get into the car.
Yeah, they're right. That's like when people live on lakes and and they just take their boat everywhere. Right. Man. And every restaurant has a dock or something.
Yeah.
And you don't ever have to get in your car, and you can truly just enjoy your time at the lake, or if you live there, right?
Yeah. It's like, lake life, right? I get it. Well, how about trail life?
Yeah.
Like once you park your car at 4 or 5:01 when you get home, that's the last time you move it.
So this makes me think of something you shared with me, that you're not necessarily like an off the grid nut, but you do have this thing you're working on.
Yes.
A cabin that's similar to Thoreau's.
Yes.
Or on Walden Pond.
Yes, I do caveat this because people build, and listen, man, whatever reason someone else has a reason to build a cabin, good for you. When the apocalypse comes, I hope I'm the first one killed, so I don't have to live with you. Is that like the idea is I'm building? Yeah, so I bought And this is actually not very public, so you're breaking news.
Okay. Are you okay to talk about
it? 100%.
All right.
2 years ago, I bought 20 acres in an undisclosed location in Marshall County.
Okay.
And I decided I wanted to continue to live my best life and my family's life. I wanted to build a cabin patterned after Thoreau's cabin at Walden Pond.
Mm-hmm.
So a 10 by 16 cabin when I say off the grid, there's no water, there's no electricity. So,
primitive.
This is primitive, and someday that may change. But for right now, when I go up there, I disappear. My tractor broke. I have a 1958 Massey Ferguson tractor.
Oh wow.
It broke, and so I'll tell you this: I have to where I park. I don't want my car up there, so I park at the bottom of the mountain, and I walk a third of a mile to where my cabin is. I carried 128 2x4s. I carried windows. So I have 10 foot long, a foot and a half wide, inch thick oak slabs. I carried 2 at a time. And I built half the cabin by carrying everything up there.
Wow.
That was my penance. I don't know what I've done, like what kind of sin I've created, but I've created bad sin because I did a lot of carrying. I just got my tractor back 2 weeks ago, and it's like I'm addicted.
Yeah.
Like mechanics matter.
So is your family allowed to go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Is just undisclosed to everybody but you.
No. We'll invite people up there. We just don't. We don't want the. No, it's a mountain called Merrill Mountain,
okay.
Which is kind of on your way to Gunnersville.
Okay.
And just it's a place for me to just go. And so I've been building a trail and building a cabin. I'll probably have it dried in probably within the next month, just in time. I got my mini wood stove.
How far away is your cabin from where the Singing River Trail will come through in Gunnersville?
So it's funny you should say that. Is the possibility could be literally down the hill.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's not me doing things
right.
to make it happen. But there's a possibility that we could be very close.
That's always like when someone is the president of the HOA, it's just because they want their fence or they want something, and then they don't want to be the president anymore.
No, and then I'm done. And I have a boat down at Gunnersville that I keep.
Okay.
And so what I love is where I live in Huntsville, is just on the bottom of Montesano. Is my house to my cabin is 21 minutes.
Nice.
And my boat is 6 minutes from my cabin. And so what I like to think is I've now made this linear life of just go down 431 and boom. So what I'll do is, I do 2 things. One is I'll go down to the cabin and I'll work, or 2 is I'll take the boat out, I'll jump in the water, tie myself to the boat, and bob up and down for about an hour.
Okay.
That's
there's a good old farmer boy that I know in Purcellville, Virginia, that swore by the Massey Ferguson.
Oh gosh,
I hadn't even heard of it. He's like, no, that's all you want to own.
Yeah.
If you're a tractor, or you're a farmer, you have to have a Massey Ferguson.
I have a Massey Ferguson.
1953, you said?
58.
58.
Yeah, it's a beast. It's
like you said. Thank goodness for a mechanic who can fix a 1958.
The only one that I could find was in Coleman, Alabama.
Yeah.
And he took his time. I was like, dude, hurry up. My back is breaking.
Shout out to the Allsteak. Is it the Allsteak restaurant we went
to?
Yes, it is. Oh, that is so good.
Allsteak with their orange rolls.
Oh, yeah. I had a ribeye.
Yeah.
And everything was spectacular.
Yeah. But yeah, so my cabin is my place to go, and just I love being up there.
Yeah.
I love for my sons to be up there, and they've enjoyed the building process as well. And when people ask me, how do you know how to build a cabin? This is probably the part I'd say is like the lifelong learner in me is like, so there's a thing called books and magazines and YouTube and common sense.
Yeah.
And so have I made mistakes? Like, yeah, 100% have made mistakes.
Yep.
And there's times where I've made mistakes that make me want to like crush myself.
Yeah.
And there's times where 2 and 2 comes 4. I don't know how it happened, but my goodness gracious, it happened. We're moving on.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just been a really fun outlet to be able to enjoy.
That's I know a lot of people, managers, leaders that kind of have that in them where something just to escape, right? To unplug a little bit. Sometimes people just go out and farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They may be an IT professional and you would never know that, and they jump on their tractor and something therapeutic, something just hard work.
Yep.
And
it's the truth. And we have a little fire pit up there, and my oldest especially, go to the Piggly Wiggly down in New Hope, buy cheap meat, go up there, throw it on open flame.
Yeah.
He's happy, I'm happy.
By the way, one of your pictures was from I think it's your son Ben that gave $50.
Yep.
And at
Very
some
proud.
point that cycled through, and I was going to stop you, but you were making a point. But how cool is that, right? That from your own son and wanting to give to your effort.
More than you realize. I mean, not you. You're a father. You
Sure.
realize it. You're a mother. You realize it. It's something. And I'll tell you this. And this is another breaking. This happened last night. But where we're going to be headquartered, I have the opportunity to build an internal trail system that would be kind of surrounding a very pristine 6 acres.
Okay.
So I took Ben out there yesterday and said, Ben, this is your Eagle Scout project if you want it, is build this trail. And so he's going to do this. And so the first Eagle Scout project on the Singing River Trail will be Ben.
That's awesome.
And so just there's a certain point of pride. Like it's like if I had a family business called the Singing River Trail General Store, I'd want my kids to follow after me. And so my general store is, man, let's get this thing done.
Yeah. So far, I don't think any of my kids want to do podcasting and help in my studio. They always run.
Hey.
You should have seen me when I used to do live streaming. I would do like these football games, and I had my own press box on the field, and it was 330 feet of cable.
Wow.
For 5 different cables I ran. And I would take 12 hours to set up, and then it'd take me about 2 hours to take down, and they didn't want any part of that.
Count me in with your kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
They didn't want any part of helping Dad.
No.
Right?
Funny how that works.
Yeah. Let's do the quick 6.
Yep.
We're going to play a game.
All right.
I don't know if you've...
This is like word association.
No. It's just it's questions. I'm going to ask you 6 questions. They don't have to be quick answers. Sure. Just a little bit of like get to know John a little bit more.
Okay.
And then I might even do the pick 6 with you.
Okay. I'm in.
Hold on. Here's the quick 6. All right. Here we go. You get a hot dog. You got the bun, right? You got the hot dog. What you putting on it? Oh, condiments wise.
Okay. So this is very easy. So if we're going to the ball game and you put a hot dog in front of me, it's going to be ketchup, yellow mustard, not fancy mustard,
yellow
relish,
ketchup, mustard, relish,
and then copious amounts. And then I want another one.
Okay. And then that's at the ball game. And then otherwise,
a bratwurst, German beer, and call it a day.
Okay. Do you go to Subway a lot?
No.
Never? Okay.
Well, no, I do. I do go to Subway, but usually it's because it's the easiest thing to go get.
So when you go to Subway and you walk up, what do you order? Is it the same thing every time?
Yeah. It actually is 9-grain oat, 6-inch, Black Forest ham. And it's easier to tell them the condiments that I don't want. I don't like tomatoes. The only 2 things in the world I don't eat or drink, I don't drink milk and I don't eat raw tomatoes. The rest is fair game.
Toasted or not toasted?
Toasted.
What kind of cheese?
Provolone or Swiss.
Okay.
But yeah, the key to the Subway sandwich to me is you could also get a salad on top of the sandwich almost. So I kind of doubling down on greed.
Okay. So your boy, what's your other son's name?
Tom. So Ben is 17, Tom is 15.
So Ben and Tom, they're going to ask you like, hey, Dad, why haven't we gone to blank lately? When are we going to go back to wherever lately? Fill in the blank for us.
For Ben, it would be, well, Tom is a sports fiend.
Okay.
So it would be, why aren't we going to, we went to see the Red Sox this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, up in Fenway?
Yeah.
Nice.
12 rows off the field. So for Tom is, why aren't we going to the Trash Pandas?
Okay.
Right now.
Right.
And for Ben, Ben loves thrifting, which is a term that I think people are beginning to realize what it is.
Yeah.
His dad, I don't thrift. I wear my own clothes. is that, Ben would be kind of, let's go to the cabin or let's go out shopping.
Okay.
So,
lake or beach vacation?
Oh, lake. I can do a beach for an hour. And then it's like, good Lord, is there something else to do other than sit here? Like, I like this. I like the sound of the beach. I like it all. But man, lake wise, if I can bob up and down.
Okay. Favorite color?
Blue.
I'm actually going to ask you 7 questions. Dog or cat?
Dog.
All right. One piece of advice you would give to Chuck Carr, who's the current president of UAH, right? You were a professor there.
Yes.
One piece of advice, just anything related to UAH.
See, this is the best thing. He can't fire me.
Yeah.
UH was a great institution in 2008 when I started there. Cared a lot about their faculty, cared a lot about their staff. A lot of people had been there for decades because they wanted to be there. and the day that UAH decided that they wanted 10,000 students was the day things went downhill. And great, you're an engineering university and you invest in all those things, but I know that they don't value the humanities, arts and sciences. I would say to him is like, it takes a full person. I'm not a big STEM person. I think, part of the problem we're having with civics these days is because we don't teach it anymore. Like, learn the rules of the road and then talk to me. Those are the kind of things I would say to him is like, you're pumping out good people, good engineers, but have no concept about the rest of it because you don't value the rest of it. Value the rest of it.
So what was the enrollment when they were targeting, hey, we got to get to 10,000?
When I started, it's probably like 8,000, and they just got this thing where they wanted to get to 10 because I guess they wanted to get to 10.
Okay.
And it just, the faculty, it just felt like you were a number and you were just a product that would help them get more products.
Yeah. Faculty
morale went way down. A lot of old timers left. It wasn't a very fun place to work when I was there. At the end, the first 7 years were fantastic. I'm there till the day I retire. The last 3 years were, who cares?
Okay. Did you teach geography?
I did teach geography.
Have you ever played? Oh
God.
No, we're not gonna. No, I'm just curious. But I'm gonna show you some pictures here. I'm gonna do 2 games with you. We're gonna also do the pick 6. But I just, for some reason, just discovered this like Google. Is it Geo? What's the Geo game? GeoGuessr. And there's this guy, like they can just take an image somewhere in the world.
Right.
This one guy can guess them in like 0.1 seconds. It could be
like
a road in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Not like a mountain in Fiji. And it's just a picture.
Okay.
And a lot of times with roads, you can tell by the lines in the road or the signs
right.
and stuff what country it's in. It's actually kind of fun.
Okay.
But I'm not necessarily going to do that. I'm going to show some trails.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to trails, we talked about the Singing River Trail.
Yep.
Have you done the Appalachian Trail?
I've not done the whole thing, but I've been.
You've done some of it?
Yep.
Maine to Georgia?
Yep. I've been mostly Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
We used to live like we were what, like 10? Well, we were at one point
if you're in
4
Winchester.
miles.
Yeah.
Well, at one point we lived in Round Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that came in right at the Blackburn Trail.
Yep.
And talk about just a fun place to go take people like from out of town. Hey, let's just go to one of the hostels or, one segment of the trail.
Absolutely.
But I got some pictures here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch over.
I'm beginning to feel pressure.
No, there's no pressure. It's just more. Normally when I do the pick 6, I'd ask someone like, and you can give me a 1-word response if you want.
Yeah.
They're all going to be pretty and beautiful, but maybe just some commentary on how well you know the world when you see these come up.
Okay.
So let's see. We're going to do, well, this is, you know where this is, right?
Is that?
Yep.
No. And that's not Rattlesnake. Is that?
Walls of Jericho.
Oh, that's what. Oh my yes. Sorry. I was thinking. I've been out west. So there's a saloon. So Walls of Jericho. Yes, I do know that. But there's a saloon called the Rattlesnake Saloon out in Colbert County, where they built a bar and restaurant in a cave that kind of looks like. So I know some people are watching and listening, but Walls of Jericho is a true. Yes, I was just actually over there. Is a true gem.
I mean, obviously this water.
Oh,
and I apologize to the people listening. You're just gonna have to watch this. I know that's been like touched up a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that blue.
No, but it's not that off either.
We also love High Falls.
Yes.
We've gone and jumped off the rocks there, and that natural bridge. That is so phenomenal. That's a park too. That's a state park.
Yep,
I believe.
Yep. But yeah, Walls of Jericho is amazing. So this is probably the spot that if I ever thought I was going to die. To paint the picture for your listeners that aren't watching, there's a trail called Angel's Landing. Is that Angel's Landing?
Probably.
Okay, that's Angel's Landing.
I'll take your word for it.
So I got to so it's out west in Utah, and I climbed to the top of this bald rock formation in a rainstorm with 10 other people that I didn't know, and we got up there, and there was a lightning storm like I've never seen in my entire life. As lightning is going by me, I'm thinking, this is it. And then we have to climb down this thing, and there's like, you can see it, but basically think of like a very narrow trail with a chain, and the chain is wet, and it's straight down 1,000 feet.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like the movies. There was one rock that broke off, and it just bounced, and I'm like, I'm gonna die today.
I'm gonna die.
That's Angel's Landing.
How old were you at the time?
Oh, I'd have been like 28, 29, 30.
Okay.
Bad decisions.
Now I don't know where this is, but
I love that.
That looks like a morning shot.
And so for people who are listening, it's just a beautiful trail, natural surface. The sun's coming through the pine forest. This is, to me, when I see something like this, what this means to me is what I'm trying to bring to people.
Yeah.
Is like, man, this is where if you're frustrated by politics and gas prices, and you're frustrated by things in life that happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you're becoming more and more obsessed with cable TV and less willing to listen, and like, this is what you need. You need a good dose of go outside and go lay on the ground.
One of the coolest things I've ever done is grueling is a Ragnar trail version.
Yeah.
And I ran a trail version in Richmond. It was like on their mountain bike trails, but the one that was awesome was like, it's called Big Bear Campground in West Virginia.
I know exactly where it is.
It's probably an hour from Morgantown. Yep. And it was gorgeous. I mean, so you're running 30 hours straight. You know, I think we ran 4 miles, 6 miles, and 7 miles as part of these loops.
Yeah.
In the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
Mountains, and it was gorgeous, but then at the same time, you know, it's physically demanding.
You were dying.
I'm falling down, but I'm looking around like, wow.
Yeah.
This is unreal.
And that's the thing, I think, with again, for people who can't see it, but just that quintessential morning shot with the mist and all of those things that make you feel good is we're surrounded by this.
We are.
But we don't have access to it.
But we will.
We will.
Now, I don't know where this is, but
this could be anywhere, but we're looking at is a wooden boardwalk that's cutting through kind of a swampy, kind of an old growth forest. And again,
like a rainforest.
Yeah.
Almost.
And what I'd say is, like, this is what access looks like.
Yeah.
Is that for people who don't want to walk through the forest, knee deep, waist deep ferns and bushes, is having something like this, or even think of someone who doesn't have the ability to walk, is that this boardwalk provides an opportunity for someone in a wheelchair or for someone in a stroller or a walker to have access to something that that may not have been if it wasn't for this. So I love saying things like this, because ultimately this is what access looks like.
You know, and it wasn't professionally built.
No.
It wasn't built to code as far as handrails.
No.
It's almost like this. It's a necessity.
Yeah.
It had to go in for some purpose and some reason, and it
is still there.
Someone probably on their own DIY, carrying in the wood, cutting them at different lengths, but it's pretty.
Yeah, I want to go. I'm guessing this is probably Hawaii, maybe like Diamond Head, like kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like the natural, you're giving people access to something that's so not man-made. It's not engineered. It's not fabricated. Like, this is real life.
I think I have one more, and I think this is in Hawaii. No, I got two more. This looks like another Utah shot.
Yeah. And again, just narrow, natural surface track, going along buttes and whatever. I used to teach geography, but I don't think I can do it anymore. But just, the mesas, I guess, is that just the opportunity to get out there and move. And so there's this guy hiking in the picture I'm looking at right now, and it's just like, he's living his best life.
Yeah. Have you been to the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
I haven't, but I was thinking of in Grand Junction, Colorado. There's the monument. It's something like that. I've never seen the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this thing. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. It was spectacular.
Yeah,
I think it's just called the Monument. That place was awesome. All right, one more, and I think they're actually going to tear this down because of safety.
This looks like an insurance adjuster's.
That's in Hawaii.
Yeah. And so, this is something that, so basically what we're looking at is on this really narrow ridge, there's this kind of staircase that's going down, kind of older looking treads, metal treads. And I'm guessing when this gets wet, it's probably like sledding. Right. And this is the thing we have to balance out. Like, I'm not one of these people. I'm not scared of risk, but there's also a point where it's like, I'm also not stupid.
Right.
So this idea looks fun, but maybe there's a better way we can execute the fun without dying.
John, it's been a pleasure having you, man.
Well, I appreciate you.
I hope we've covered enough of what gives the people an appreciation for the Singing River Trail.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
And I think that I'm actually going to show it one more time. There it is.
That won't hurt my feelings.
Any last comment? Now, you know what? There is that. Can you help me explain the input map that you guys have online where people can kind of come in and set markers?
Yeah. So basically, if there's things that so Madison better than I do. I don't live here. You do. Mm-hmm. So if I give you this input map and say, hey, man, this opportunity to mark things that we may want to know about for connectivity, to just be aware of. The input map is really about letting local people dictate, or not dictate, that's too strong of a word, letting local people be able to have input to say, there you go, is to be able to say, hey, did you know? Hey, this exists. And so we take this data and we input it and what we're trying to do is figure out how can we connect things.
Okay. So all these purple marks are someone who's made a comment based on that location.
Yeah. So it could be like, hey, do you know about Rainbow Mountain? Hey, do you know that this rock formation? And, a lot of times locals have the best information. Some of these, it could even be like, hey, there's a farmer that you need to talk to. Like real world data and intelligence of, there's a farmer who just said he would love to have the Singing River Trail, which we've actually had these conversations. And so, it's our way of getting better and better by listening. You asked me, I think you were about to ask me any last comments or last thoughts. And, as a historian, I think Americans have forgotten how to listen. And, we talk well. Yeah. If you turn on cable television.
We talk well.
We talk very well.
24/7.
We just don't listen very well.
Yeah.
And I think part of maybe the success when you were asking, like, what has made this extraordinary or how has this worked is part of it is I do talk a lot. It's my job to go out and preach the gospel of the Singing River Trail, but I also listen a lot. And a lot of what I've heard is that we want to be a part of something that's bigger than us. We want to be bound together. We want to work together. So I think sometimes when Americans begin to maybe despair that we just don't get along very well, is maybe what I'd say is maybe what I'll start doing is opening up my Friday ride-alongs. And you could buy me lunch as a thank you to maybe understanding that if you take away TV and you take away ratings and you take away big mouths that have to fill time and you take away anger, pretty much every day is working with people who just want to make the world a better place, one town, one block, one foot at a time along the Singing River Trail. And so don't despair. It's actually wonderful out there. And people often also ask me, I love this, what political affiliation is the Singing River Trail? And, to answer a question that can't be answered is, I always like to tell people is that, we have R's and D's. And that we are an A, and that stands for Alabamian, and that stands for American, and that we're very proud to be both. Mm-hmm. And I'm not bound. We have Democrats, we have Republicans that support this trail. And so, if it matters that much to you what I am or what the trail is, like, go get a life. Yeah. Like, go find a hobby. Yeah. Like, surely you have something to think about other than what I am or what, is the trail have a political affiliation? Yes, we do. Alabama. And for me, I think that's the best part about this is it's kind of being able to use my past. I've had people call me out on history that don't know it. And it's kind of fun. Like, well, how do you know? I'm like, well, you can call me Dr. Kvach now. Yeah. Is that like ultimately being able to use it as a way to maybe preach a little bit of working together goes a lot longer than working apart.
Yeah. Well said. Well, like every guest I have, I think we'll probably talk in the future. Yeah. I plan to keep doing this for a long time.
Great.
So I'll love to have you back, particularly after you get settled in your new headquarters.
Well, and I'd love to tell you where it is right now, but that's I can't. Fine. But I'll tell you this, when you hear it, we'll have you out there maybe.
Well, it's be good. As I said earlier, we'll talk to Rob Hamilton. We're going to talk to Sarah James. We're going to talk to John Allen and on and on and on. And as we go forward, and it'll be nice to your progress, and can't wait to see how it transpires and be a beneficiary of it.
Yeah, I can't. That's the part that is most exciting is what you just said, to be the beneficiary of it.
It's exciting I'm very reticent about donating money unless you actually see the output or the product, right, of that.
Right.
And this is something, oh yeah, I'm going to donate money because
I appreciate that.
because it means something. You come across someone where they're actively out and about trying to make it happen, and every dollar is going to be used.
And that's the thing is, I would say to you is the part that it's probably, so when I was a middle school student, when you're handed down superpowers for some odd reason, I wish I had X-ray vision back when I was a middle schooler. You figure out why. Golly, I'd love to have like X-ray vision.
Yeah.
So what I really realized is I have this, my superpower that I never knew I had, that I maybe don't wish I had, but I'm glad I do have in this job, is I don't have a pitch. I've never had formal training on how to ask people for money. There's no hard ask. If you say no, we can go out and still be friends.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, less than 5 no's, almost $2 million. And my superpower is when I ask people for money, they'll give it to me.
It's genuine.
And because I think that the authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
if we're not authentic, it becomes a project. It becomes a hashtag. I don't want to become a hashtag.
Yeah.
I want to become North Alabama.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the part that I really want to let people know is if you do give money, if you do give time, if you do give something in kind, and I'll just tell you this a quick aside because this just happened. I had a lady from Decatur call me last week and say to me, can you explain some things that I need clarification on? I said, yeah. So we did. And she said, well, I've called my lawyer and I'll be redrawing up my will to leave the Singing River Trail as one of the beneficiaries.
Wow.
So what I'd say to you is so from my perspective as the executive director, financial person, hey, I'm glad because we're going to be getting some money. But in reality, the part that probably made me most emotional, and I'm not an emotional person in the sense of I'm not going to start breaking down and crying.
Yeah.
But in reality, the thought that someone felt that this was such a positive project and doable and achievable and believed in the mission and what we're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
that they're calling their lawyer and changing their will to make this a reality for us and for her, was very humbling and just maybe reaffirmation that we're doing this the right way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so it was very meaningful for me to have someone make that offer. May she live another 20 years. May I never spend her money.
Yeah.
But just the thought was
It's
very
incredible.
powerful.
It's incredible.
That's 2 years in.
Think about that lady's life, all that she's done.
Yeah.
And it culminates with, you know what? The Singing River Trail. It means that much.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So that's very powerful.
I'll tell you, I want to get in my selfish plug when it's done or even when it's not done. I have a race that I want to do.
I'm in.
Separate than that, but
Okay.
I would love, that could be, who knows what you could do with that trail, right? And others that may have the same interest in bringing, either it's the 200-mile race or it's a 100-mile race or it's a 50-mile race or whatever it is. Any combination of that.
Well, it's funny you should say that. One of our newest supporters, stakeholders, and sponsors is Fleet Feet.
Yeah.
Not to give them a shameless plug, but
That's fine.
yesterday we talked about an ultra.
There you go. Yep.
And maybe out near Mooresville. We could have a triathlon that could be bike, run, and kayak just in Mooresville area.
I'd be all for the not swimming part. Anything.
Well, there's alligators in the bay there too.
I'll do a kayak.
Yes. Yeah. And so, that's the part that I want to have people start saying, I can be part of this in my own way. And so my double entendre way of saying this is find yourself on the Singing River Trail.
Yeah.
Which really means I hope you find yourself on there and use it, but I also want you to go out and find yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of that more philosophical finding yourself.
Sure.
And then you come back to me and say, oh my gosh, I think I could do X or Y or Z, and us be able to say, let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. John, it's been a pleasure, man.
Hey, I really appreciate your time for both of you.
Oh, by the way, you're definitely a beard guy. I don't know what the survey is on you because I've seen pictures of you with beard, no beard.
Yes.
What's the?
Oh my gosh, my kids! If I shave this off, they would probably stab me with a fork. And my wife hates it. She's the only one that hates it, by the way.
Have you had it most of your adult life?
No. Yeah, I shouldn't say it that way. Yeah, 1 year I grew it back forth 7 times.
Yeah.
And then one day I'm like, you know what? I'm in.
Dude, if you're a park ranger, you got to have a beard.
I know. So yeah, I've come to the realization that I'm a beard guy.
Yeah, and if you have your own Walden Pond style cabin, you got to have a beard.
I need a bigger beard then.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so when I qualified with off grid, it's not to besmirch the person who wants a trillion guns and a trillion bullets. I want to, it's not that. It's like there's a certain like the Kaczynski. There's no manifesto coming out of my cabin. Let's put it that way. I'm happy. I'm living my best life, and I want to live with you, not against you.
Well, folks, he's John Kvach, Executive Director of the Singing River Trail, and professor, doctor, many different things. But right now, he's an Alabamian, just like we all are, and happy to be here. And thanks for being on the podcast.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.